and get started. Thank you for joining us for our Overcoming Your Fears panel. We have three amazing panelists, which are on. We're going to have Crispin Reyna, we have Jared Greenberg, and we have Carrie Schultz, who are going to be speaking today. The format for the panel is like all of our panels. We're going to ask three questions, and we're going to give each of the panelists time to answer the questions. And then at the end, we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A session. But the biggest intention for this is how do we overcome our fears in regarding to lead generation and growing our business, and how have these agents, hello, Crispin. Crispin's getting on. We see his stomach. There he is. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with Carrie. So Carrie, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in real estate? And anything else you want to share before we get started with the questions?
Okay. Again, I'm Carrie Schultz. Carrie,
we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Let me get my mute on.
Nope, still can't hear you.
I can hear her.
I can hear her just
Can
fine.
you hear me?
No,
You can hear her?
I could hear.
Wait.
All right, let me call back in and see what I can do.
No. We can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear you.
I had mine on mute, so you're good.
You're good, Carrie.
Okay, good. I was like, I think I'm okay. All right, Carrie Schultz. I just started real estate in March of 2020 in this lovely COVID environment. And what were the other questions? I'm a mom of three, busy, volunteer a lot everywhere. And yeah, joined Keller as soon as I got licensed in March. So
Carrie, you've been licensed since March, and what has your production been like so far this year? Have you hit any milestones?
yes, I capped already, I guess in my September closings. I am at about 2.6, I believe, in closed revenue as of right now, and GCI. And I have the potential to be at 3.8, almost 4 by the end of this year. So I have 2 under contract right now and a new listing coming in November. So yeah, hopefully it will get closed before the end of the year. So.
Perfect. So that's why we asked Carrie to be on, because Carrie's had a lot of success and this is her first year in real estate. So let's go ahead and go to Jared next. So Jared, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in real estate, and what your production is?
Absolutely. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, yeah, Carrie, that's awesome. Congrats on your success. That's amazing, the numbers you're doing your first year. So congrats on that. So I have been in the business since 2011. I joined Keller Williams Premier. I was actually on a team. I worked for Rick Dittemore for 6 years. And then in 2018, I ended up going out on my own as an individual agent. So yeah, that's about where I'm at. My volume to date is at 7 million. You know, I might hit 8 or 9 million by the end of the year. So yeah, it started out, at least my 3 years on my own, I did, what did I do? I did 2 million, I did 5 million, and then now my third year on my own, I'm up to 7 million. So 50 to 100% increase a year the last 3 years. So I'm hoping to keep that steady.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Jared. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Crispin Reyna, can you let us know who you are, how long you've been in real estate, and you have a team. So can you tell us a little bit about what your team looks like?
Yes. And again, to piggyback on Jared, congrats. Those are some, if y'all don't know it, those two folks are doing some extraordinary numbers. And I know from a team dynamic, to do it as a solo agent, maybe with some support, is just really, that's next level. So congratulations to the two of you. I've been in real estate in and around real estate for 16 years. I've been with the Keller Williams environment for 6. Came over here a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half. So, you know, we came over, I had a team. I grew it to like 9 or 11, just too fast, and you know, didn't set some good models in place. Completely started over just after COVID hit this year. And so 2 months ago, I was the solo agent for a whole month, and then I started rebuilding. So we've got 4 now. The good thing with all that turmoil is we had a big hit in March, but my goals for this year, my first year with Premier, was 10 million, and we will do that probably a little bit more. And so just to let you know, like from a team dynamic to do that, you know, solo agents, you know, doing 6 and 7, it's just really, that's big, because, you know, they're making a ton of money too. And clearly from what we're talking about today, from a lead generation standpoint, they're not letting some of these things get in the way with systems and models and fear and scripts. So we're hoping to get into that dynamic and talk about it today and help some people, who want to, grow their business.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing, Crispin. So Crispin, we're going to stay on you. Let's go ahead and hit our first question, which either when you started in real estate or now, what was always your biggest fear around lead generation and how did you overcome it?
I love that question. Thank you for asking it. And I have to go kind of a different route with it for you. I didn't really have a fear. I know that right away, so this would have been about 6 years ago. I had been in real estate for a long time. I did non-traditional stuff and I did well. It just wasn't systemized and I couldn't grow it. And then I owned a remodeling company. I owned a restaurant. And when I got back in, I really wanted to build a business around real estate and not just, sling real estate for my whole life. So I started as a solo agent and I started grinding and, I did Ignite, did everything that I was asked to do with Keller Williams. I learned and I grew a lot and I believed I was doing it. I did have some fears and there was some things I'll share that helped me overcome it. And so as we're there in the conversation, I'll share the first fear that I overcame in just a couple of weeks was like, I didn't want to call people that I knew. I didn't want to call people that I didn't know. And so I had a plan in my remodeling company. I would send direct mail or flyers and it worked really well, but that doesn't work in and of itself in real estate, especially when you're building it. You have to do it systematically over time. So my first coach introduced me to a concept of, don't own the outcome, just get good at it, get into the habit, create some wins, create some failures. And so my first task that helped me start to really lead gen, was to they said, just make 100 dials and don't worry about it. If you talk to people, don't talk to people. If you've set appointments, if you don't, just make 100 dials and see how it goes. And the cool thing is at about the 50 mark, I started connecting. I got a little more comfortable. I wasn't great at it, but I set an appointment. I didn't get it, but I set an appointment. That kind of helped me get going. And so as you fast forward, what I learned about lead gen and the process is, and this is really important to me today, and it's what I teach my team members and anybody in my environment. It wasn't just about doing the work, because I was the first one here and the last one to leave when I was at the other brokerage with Keller Williams. And I was making calls and I thought I was doing everything you needed to do. And for 9 months, not one person actually hired me and I almost quit. I got coached by 2 men that are now bold coaches, and I'm very grateful and privileged that they were in my life. And they just helped me look at it a little bit differently. And the main thing was I wasn't going deep enough in the conversation and I wasn't following up at the level that I needed to. So I was doing the work and it wasn't fruitful. And I thought, well, I honestly believed maybe it's just me. Maybe real estate's just not cut out for me. Like all these other people could do it. And yet probably I can't for whatever reason. And I was going to quit. And it's funny because in my first year, for 9 months, nobody hired me. And then I learned that thing and I ended up closing 4 deals and I did $1 million in my first year. In my second year, the first 4 months, I wrote over $6 million in volume just by shifting the way that I looked at it. I went deeper in the conversation and I set up a follow-up plan. And so those were huge for my confidence because what I was doing before was not working. It was just like the first level. So those are some things with lead generation that, the fears and how I overcame them early on.
So perfect. So Kristen, I think to summarize what you said is just basically do the work, but if you're doing the work, you need to follow up. Otherwise the work
Right.
is just busy work, right?
Right. Another way to look at it is a mistake I see happen now is somebody will do an open house and they'll go door knock for it. And that's great activity. And yet without the follow-up, you're really just looking for somebody who's going to hire a stranger. And that's the conversion is really low. So you've got to follow up. You got to set up a plan to follow, knock the doors again, send direct mail, circle prospect, do whatever you got to do to farm that area. It's about the follow-up. It's not about the initial work. That's my biggest influence that I'd like to leave today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Crispin. So we're going to go to Jared with the same question. And Jared, you're someone who's in the office all the time, lead generating. So what has always been your biggest fear around lead generation and how did you overcome it?
Well, so when I got in the business, I was 19 years old in 2011. My fear was literally everything. I had no idea what I was doing. Never bought a house, never rented anything, living with my parents. And I was about to help people buy $500,000 and $600,000 houses. One of my first clients was actually 700,000. And it's funny, the way I got the lead, it was from the team, and I got it from an open house. I was just completely transparent with them and honest. And I didn't try to beat around the bush or tell them I was good at this or that, or I just told them I'm new. I'm going to work my butt off for you. And if I don't know the answer to the question, I'm going to find out immediately.
Mm.
And I would love the opportunity to help you guys. And they were willing to trust me to help them in that transaction. So, you know, everything I did when it came to lead generation, I was scared as hell to do it before I started doing it. So
Mm.
like, for example, open houses. I was 19, came in, and I was like, what do I do at an open house? I have to talk to people now. And what do I say? I don't even know what to say or talk about. What's my goal? What am I trying to accomplish there? What do I do after I get their info? So everything I did for like open houses and making phone calls and answering phone calls for leads, one of the ways I got comfortable was just I shadowed. I would shadow Rick. I would watch him make calls. Literally for a couple days, I just sat there and watched him make calls. I did no calls myself. I just watched. And I would hear how he talked. To do an open house before I did one, I went and shadowed. I shadowed Rick do one, and then I went and reached out to a couple other agents in the office and asked if I could just go watch them and just be like, hey, I'm here to help you if you need help with anything. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit back and be kind of like your assistant to the customers. At least that's all they're going to know is I'm here learning, and I'm here as one of your partners, just helping you with the open house. So I would watch, and I watched how he interacted, what he said. I would go to the other agent and see kind of what they were saying and how they went about interacting with a client or with a potential client at an open house. And that's how I got used to doing the open house. And with every lead generation tactic, that's exactly how I learned it, is I would say, hey, let me come watch you. One of my biggest fears that I have yet to overcome is doing expired calls and circle prospecting, which Crispin is somewhat of a master of. I went and watched him last year, just one time, just to watch him and see how he interacts and how he does the call. And, you know, it was really neat seeing his strategies and how he's communicating and how he's going about that phone call. So y'all will probably see some differences when how we lead generate. I'm very marketing based and inbound lead generation, whereas Crispin does a lot of outbound prospecting. It's different. You have to know how to handle it, and they're not bad. You got to do something. And if you got to do one or the other, and you're going to be scared of all of it, and you got to watch and see how other people are doing it, stand on their shoulders, and then rip off and copy them. That's what we're doing. We're just seeing how everyone does everything else, and we're copying it. We're seeing exactly how other people get business, and we're doing it in our own way. And you'll eventually figure out a way to do it how you want to do it. But I would say everything was my fear, and overcoming it was shadowing people, watching how they did it, and then just taking action and doing it. And after you do it a few times, and once you hit a certain amount of numbers of doing that process over and over, it no longer scares you. So.
Wow. Thank you, Jared. So just so I can sum up what I heard you say is that you just have to go to people who are already in mastery of it and just watch what they do. And one other thing I heard you say is even though you are a top producer closing $6-7 million, you're on our Associate Leadership Council, you still went to go shadow somebody else on a form of lead generation that you don't currently do. So it's not about you just do it once and you learn it and you're done. It's about, okay, I want to continue to get better and master this. Is that a good summary for you?
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Thank you, Jared. All right. And last but not least on this first question, Carrie, you're the newest one of the group of the panel today. So as a brand new person, less than a year in the business, what are your biggest fears around lead generation, or how are you overcoming them?
I don't know. I honestly wasn't scared. I guess maybe that's crazy. When it comes to my sphere, so that's what I focused on first is getting to all the people in my sphere. I before Ignite, so I didn't get into Ignite until close to May,
Good day.
April. I actually sat down and watched every single Marty Miller video, his 3-day, what do you call it, 3.0. And I learned everything command as I could. I downloaded my database and I did that, do the database and contacted every single person I could in my database, either by text or letter or a handwritten note, that kind of thing. And for me, it wasn't scared. It was just, I needed to know what steps to go do so I could get them done. And I did it. And that's how I got all of my clients to begin. What does scare me is the phone calls. So I do a lot of Facebook ads too. And I've actually gotten better at converting those leads recently. But picking up the phone and calling people is awful. I don't like being hung up on or yelled at, cursed at sometimes. So that stinks. But I've utilized the smart plans to do a lot of the texting or the emailing. So I don't have to do it, but it's being done for me. And if they cuss at me, it's okay. As Diego used to tell us, what did Diego say in training? They just don't want fries with that. So if someone comes to you and says, no, I don't want to do that, it's not, it's just they don't want fries with that. So it's just getting over it. And then when you do hit a bump in the road and you get turned down or someone yells or they're not interested, just keep moving and get going on and not stopping. So I do echo a lot what Jared said. I'm very transparent with my clients and let them know that I'm new and that I'm learning, and that if I don't have the answer, I will go find it. And so I utilize my network pretty well when it comes to resources in the office to help me get answers to questions I don't know. And it's been really good for me so far. So.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing, Carrie. So what I hear is that you really, you targeted your sphere. You're still learning and growing and you're still overcoming your fears, but you're actively pursuing that, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Perfect. So we're actually going to stay with you and go on to the next question. So how do you currently lead generate now? You spoke about talking to your sphere. What are the ways that you bring in business?
Right now, honestly, the biggest right now is referrals from the people that I have done work with. One of the things I did when I first started was focused on working with people to see about refinancing and or disputing taxes. And so as Diego said, I just focused on coming from a place of contribution, like what could I add value to? And then it's just reaching out constantly to the people in my network to just check in and see how they're doing. I also do a ton of Facebook information. So I make daily posts educating people around Facebook, and I expanded my Facebook network to the full 5,000 people that you can. And I have almost, I think it's 17 or 1,800 on my business page so far. And I did that. And so between those two networks and LinkedIn and Instagram, I don't do as much on that. I share articles every day. And so I know people in my neighborhood who know me, know that I'm in real estate because I do constantly publish information out there of what to do. I utilize Keeping Matters Current. That's one thing I wanted to tell a lot of the new agents about. It's a free site for a while, unless you want to pay for the subscription. But it does a lot of great articles that are free that you can share to your Facebook group.
Perfect. And what was that website again? Could you give it to everyone one more time?
Yeah, Keeping Matters Current.
Perfect.
And so between that and Facebook, I will tell you, I'm very excited about my Facebook leads lately. I found that so far doing listings is the best way to get leads, not just like, are you a first-time home buyer or anything like that? Actually putting out a listing and running an ad on it. I do my own listings, and then I ask other agents to be able to do their listings as well. I would say I have probably maybe 200 some odd leads, probably more than that, but I have actually converted 5 so far into real clients.
Wow.
That I've talked to, and one for sure under contract. She's building her first home in February in Sienna Plantation. I met a millionaire online who asked me to show all these condos to him, 8 condos in the Post Oak area in the building Manhattan and put in an offer for a house that was about $1 million condo. We did not get our.
Yeah, you shared that story with me earlier, Carrie. Can you go a little deeper with that? How did you get that $1 million client?
So honestly, it was a Facebook ad. I called him. It was before a lot of the smart plans that I use now come out. So I made my own. I texted him and I called him. We did a brief call to understand what he was looking for. And I set up a HAR search for him. So it would automatically email him out the homes that he'd be interested in. And it just been doing that on a continuous basis since probably August. And just last week or 2 weeks ago, he called me and said, hey, I want to look at these 8 properties. I didn't do a whole lot outside of that, to be honest. It was just sending him information every week. And, you know, whenever the listings came up. And as a result of that, I got to meet him. And hopefully we didn't get accepted on this offer, but hopefully we'll be submitting another one soon.
So perfect. So you did a Facebook ad and you got a lead in.
Yes.
And then it wasn't just, he didn't want to do business right that second, but you continually followed up with him, and you did that by setting him up on an HAR search.
Yes.
And because you kept top of mind as his agent and were providing him value, now you have a buyer's rep with him and you're putting offers in on $700,000 to $1 million properties.
That is
this
correct.
was someone who came in through your Facebook. That's a phenomenal story. Thank you for sharing that, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So Jared, we're going to go to you next. So how do you currently lead generate now in your business?
So I am more, like I said, the first time, I am kind of unusual in the sense that I am more marketing based. I am not really a prospector to an extent. I am, and I'll explain kind of how I am. We all are. It's just which one do you focus on a lot? So I was writing down where all my leads came in. I have on everyone should have a graph of your production of what you're selling and where that lead came from and how you're acquiring those clients. And for the year so far, Google has been my top income maker on lead generation, open houses, HAR, HAR.com. I've had a couple people call me to list their houses just because they like my pictures and how I present my listings online. They were impressed by that. So I got calls from HAR just from leveraging my other listings and doing a good job on it. Just listed, just sold flyers. Anytime I get a listing, I do just listed, just sold flyers. I'll show you. I don't know if you can see him with the lighting's pretty bad in here. Yeah, you can't really see it, but so anyway, I do these right here where they're mailed out. It has the property on it. If it's just listed, just sold, usually on the postcard somewhere, I'll put on there, where does it say? I'll say visit jghomegroup.com to check your home value. So I've gotten quite a few sellers just from that, just from my just listed, just sold flyers, mail out all the neighbors with the listing. And if they want to check their home's value, they can go to my website and go to the home valuation section. So that's one way I've gotten some sales this year. Sphere and referrals was pretty heavy. That's about 30%. So 30% was about Sphere and referrals. Realtor.com, I got one. And then just calling people back over the years from being in business. I would say the biggest, I guess, the reason most agents don't make it in this business is they don't use a CRM. So you don't use either Command or Top Producer or something that will track someone's contact info with notes and a callback. And they're not up to date on it. I mean, that's the biggest thing is making sure your CRM is up to date. Everyone you meet goes into the CRM and you have a callback on them. Everyone has to have a callback and actually call the people back. That's the biggest thing when it comes to lead generation, in my opinion, is being on the phone and calling people back when you say you're going to call them back. Something that's really helped me is, I always have a headset. So this headset right here, it goes over both ears, has a microphone. This makes it really easy to make phone calls. When I have inbound leads coming in, whether it's a lead I paid for, or if I'm going through my CRM and making the calls I need to make today, this makes it really easy. So if you don't have a headset, it might be a good idea to get one. You can hook it up to your cell phone or if you have an office line, I use an office line, you can do that. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place, honestly. I have tons of inbound lead generation techniques set up.
So what I heard you say, Jared, that I think is important for us to note is that you track where you get all of your clients, right? Because it's important to know your conversion rates, because if something's not working, right, do you continue to use it?
Oh no. So that's one of the things I'm doing. So every year or pretty much every year, I add up all my business, where it came from, how much did I spend on that tactic, whether it be Google or realtor.com or just sold and just listed flyers. I have a spreadsheet that shows me how much I paid for that and how much GCI I made from it. So I'm tracking my returns. If something is negative after too much time, I quit it. I don't do it anymore. I'm not spending money on that. Last year, my biggest lead generation was open houses. It's not this year because I haven't been doing them how I should because of COVID. Once I start that again, I'm expecting open houses to be a very high converter for me. I had about 45,000 in GCI just from open houses last year. And that's not from doing 4 a weekend. That's from doing about 1 a weekend. So I would say if you're new, if you don't have a budget and if you're not set up like a business and you're not going to come in and put a whole bunch of money into your business, you're going to have to pretty much be prospecting based, open houses, your sphere, loading everyone you know into the CRM. Me, when I left the team, I purposefully turned it into a business. I put in about $20,000 into my business and I funneled all that money into my business. So if you're not doing it that way, you're going to have to go the prospecting open house way or how Crispin mainly gets his business. I don't know if he still does. I don't know if Crispin, if that's your main way of doing it now still, but I know that you're really heavy on that prospecting. So yeah, that's kind of what I have to say.
Perfect, Jared. Thank you so much for sharing. So yeah, well, that's a perfect segue into Crispin. What is it that you do to lead generate, and how does your team lead generate?
I guess I'm gonna have to talk about it in 2 ways. Like if I were an individual agent, the cool thing is I just experienced it. So I started over. So when I started over, I had to lead gen. I didn't have anybody lead genning from the team. So I called expireds and for sale by owners. I didn't end up doing any open houses, but I had inventory. So I was able to market that. I did really, really well with just low level command Facebook advertising. They work really, really well. I learned from me, but before command was around, I spent thousands of dollars. In my first year, like in the first couple of months, I spent over $6,000 on Facebook ads and websites, and I never got a lead. I never got a lead. I'm not saying I didn't get a good or bad lead. I didn't get any leads. When command came around, I was really skeptical and I thought, I don't know. And I just kept hearing some success stories. So I took out a few, and frankly, I was about $4,500 in without converting anybody and about to quit. I go to family reunion. I hear this guy with this algorithm, and I wasn't sold. I approached him and I talked to him, and he said, man, this is legit. And he got his laptop out and he showed me, and I followed that plan. And it's what Carrie has discovered. If you just focus on listings and nothing else, and don't add any language, don't try to mess with the target. $4 a day for 5 days, it's a $20 investment. I was getting 18 to 21 leads. I had to stop because our follow-up isn't where it needs to be. We don't have a lead flow problem. We have a lead conversion, a lead follow-up, and a lead conversion problem. There's no problem creating leads anymore. So I lead generated, I created a bunch, and I got to the point to where I was looking around and I couldn't handle it all. That's the only reason I built a team. I'm really good at lead gen. So my team today, they do all the lead gen. They call the expireds and for sale by owners, and I coach them. And I focus on the 20%. Since we've been on this call, I got a $310,000 listing, and they're probably going to want to buy also since I've been on the call, and I just sent it out. So I stay in my 20%, which is the most influential people in my universe. And I call them every single day because they're important. And we're doing deals. We're doing multiple deals, 4 or 5 deals at a time. And And so that's where I reside now. And I coach my team to do what you're doing, right? Calling expireds for sale by owners, doing open houses. And what I teach is 20% of your work in a day, in a week, in a quarter, in a year, 20% of it needs to be creating new relationships. 80% needs to be following up. We know that the money, the fortune is in the follow-up. And I learned that early on. If you don't have a good follow-up plan, just go write a list. Who are the top 5 or 10 people that are most influential in your life, or that want to buy or sell soon, or are stuck and need to get moved forward, and focus there and give them time and attention. Because what you don't want to happen is what happened to me and maybe some of us as we were getting started and coming up, where you find yourself where you do this and you create the leads and then you lose a bunch of them and you don't convert them because you didn't know how to follow up. And that happened to me. And it happened to me with this new iteration of my team. I lost a ton of business, like millions of dollars in sales I lost because I couldn't service them. So there's a couple ways to look at it, right? So my team dynamic's a little different, but as it relates to you, I love what Jared's doing. I think marketing is awesome. And, it takes a little bit of money, but it doesn't take a lot, because you'll create some leads, but you have to follow up. And if you're starting somewhere, I would suggest start with the Facebook ads in Command. It's cheap. When I have my system going and I have it paused right now, I'll do 3 or 4 ads a week. That's it, at $20 a pop. I'll do that every week, and that'll create about 400 to 500 leads in a month. That's crazy. And you can convert easily 10, 15 of those, but it takes money. But more importantly, that sounds great. Go do it, and then tell me how it works with following up with 500 people. It's just an impossibility as an individual agent. It's really, really hard to do. And so then you end up just working with the ones that you think are going to move quickly, and then it's not worth it to spend that amount of money. So there's this balancing act you got to find out. A quick success story just to help you cement that Facebook ads work. I went to family reunion. I came back. I followed this algorithm. The very first ad I took out, I got a call, and I had to compete with arguably one of the biggest teams in Katy. And they were discounting and they were offering buyback and buyout programs. And I won them over. And on a $20 ad in the late stages of their new construction, they added me to a Perry home at the late stages. That never happens. I got $18,000 on the buy side. I listed their $450,000 home. We sold it for about $430,000. I got 3% on that on $20. And so I'm all in with the Command ads. I know they work. And yet, here's what you don't know. That sounds really awesome. I called them relentlessly every single day, 3 times a day. We just got an ad now. I sent it to a teammate. I said, call them, text them, bomb right away. Send them a video. And then in about an hour and a half, we're going to do the same thing tomorrow morning, 3 times tomorrow. We're going to hit them until we convert them. And that's what it takes. You have to be relentless with your follow-up. So that's my ad.
So perfect. So
Mary.
Crispin, since you were talking about being relentless in your follow-up, how would you handle the fear of they don't want to hear from me or I'm being annoying? How would you handle that
Sure.
fear?
Well, now we're getting into coaching, which I have no problem talking about. So here's what you need to know. I teach scripts. I'm very passionate about the language of sales and scripts, and there's the stigma around it. And yet really all it is, like, whether you believe in scripts or not, you're right, they work, because you're either telling yourself a script that they don't work, or you're using a script. And what converted me with scripts is I was against them. I didn't like them. It didn't sound like me. And I was arguing with a coach, and they said, of course you don't like that. You don't sound like that because you sound like $1 million producer, in a year. And this is what $100 million producer sounds like. So you want to sound like you, or do you want to sound like them? And that just kind of clicked. I thought, okay, well, I don't want to sound like, I don't want to make, a little bit of money. I want to make a lot. So I should probably sound different. And I started studying and mastering that. And I still master it today. I'm not a master of scripts. I want to be, I desire it. And here's what you'll find when you go deep with scripts. It's a belief game. What do I believe? And what do I believe about myself? Or what story am I telling? And what are their beliefs? Until you can get your beliefs and their beliefs matched up, you won't move forward with anybody. So we go deep there. And so what Mary's asking is around the fear or the stories of, what do they think? We don't even know if it's true. I always ask people, well, how many times has that happened to you? And they'll say none. I'm just scared it will. Okay, well, let's go. When it happens, let's talk about it. And until then, it's really it's just a lie, right? It's not anything that's true, because it doesn't happen to me often. It'll happen on occasion, but it's rare that it happens. And I've coached hundreds and hundreds of people. I'm privileged to have done that. So here's what I would say. It's not a true story. Rewrite the story. Go get some experience, do what I did and go make 50 or 100 dials and see what happens, and just get past it. Because what you'll find is most people are grateful that you called if you call with the right script. We use discovery scripts, and all that means is we call and we come from curiosity, and then we come from contribution. Coming from contribution in and of itself alone with somebody you don't know sounds like a sales pitch, and it's what you fear and it's what you don't want to sound like. So instead you call and you just ask questions, and you discover one of two things: who are you and where are you? That's all I teach. Who are you? Who am I dealing with? What do you believe? And what's going on in your life? Because with life events, we can predict real estate: a divorce, a baby, a promotion, I got laid off. Those are life events. And then subsequently is when a real estate transaction happens. So if we know who you are, we can predict a real estate transaction. If we know where you are, we mean, where are you in the process? Are you getting started? Are you on the back end? Most people will tell you, I don't have a plan to buy or sell real estate, and yet they do. So you ask what would have to happen, and they may tell you, well, my kids would have to graduate. Great. So in 12 years, you have a plan to sell. I had somebody tell me one time I'd have to die. I said, okay, wonderful. Well, I hope that doesn't happen soon. And yet when it does, who's going to help you with your estate planning? Have you thought about that? And I set an appointment. So you just have to go deeper and deeper and deeper with the conversation. Here's the last thing I'll add to that. If they don't know you personally, and when you're cold calling, they do not, then it cannot be personal. It's actually just a reflection of who they are or where they are. And they may be in a bad place right now with everything that's happening in the world. So just remember that if they don't know you personally, it's not personal. It's just who they are, where they are. So be bigger and be a professional, and have thick skin and step through it and ask the tough questions and serve them, because those difficult people are a gift. Those are the ones that you'll convert, and they'll be raving fans, and you'll keep them forever. I know. I fight through those. Like when you're looking up for property and there's no address, I love that. Nobody else can get it. I'll go down to the county. I'll figure it out. When somebody curses me out, I know a weak agent is not going to follow up with them. That's exactly the one that I want to follow up with, and we'll convert them. So just remember, if they don't know you personally, it's not personal.
Perfect. I love that. Thank you, Crispin. All right, so we're going to dive into our final question, then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So Jared, we'll start with you this time. What is the one book or resource that you would recommend to the agents on our call, either to how to lead generate or how to overcome their fears in regards to it?
That's a tough one to answer for me, at least, because I don't really have any books that I read that help me get over lead generation fears. For me, it really comes down to motivation of what you want in life, what your why is, what you're trying to accomplish personally. If you want that bad enough, you won't let your fear of lead generation make you not do anything. Mm-hmm. You have to do something. So when it comes to like generalized books that are motivating, Think and Grow Rich, that's a good book. That's a very general, self-motivating book. Me, I'm a finance type of person, and a finance very analytical. So I like the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books. I like the Dave Ramsey books. I like those type of personal finance type books. That motivates me, which gets me saying, okay, if I want to do all these things with my money, I have to sell houses. And if I'm going to sell houses, I gotta get uncomfortable and do all these things I don't like doing, which is talking to lots of people every day. I'm an introvert. I don't naturally, if you see me at a party or out and about at a bar, I'm not the social butterfly jumping around. I'm very reserved. So, I'm always going outside of my bubble when it comes to talking to people. And it feels natural now just because I've done it so long. I'm calling people that they don't remember who I am. They don't know who I am. This might be the second time I've talked to them or first. And what motivates me is what I can do with that money. So yeah, those are the kind of books that motivate me. I don't really have a lead generation book per se. When it comes down to scripts I got when I was starting out on a team were from my team leader. I don't even know where he got the scripts from, honestly, because he made them himself. So I think a lot of them came from Bold and a lot of the Keller Williams books. He ended up tailoring them to what worked best for him. So I would say when it comes down to just being comfortable, when you can read some motivating books, whatever motivates you, honestly. And then from there, to pick up the phone, just remember you're having a conversation with somebody. It doesn't matter if you convert them right there. Like Crispin said, you're coming from contribution, just get to know the person. And always ask open-ended questions. Where do you live now? When are you wanting to move? Why are you moving? What price range are you going to look for? Would it be helpful if I did XYZ? Would it be helpful if I did this for you? When would be a good time for me to follow up with you? And then if you're following up with someone, how are things going? How's the family? What have you been up to? What are your plans? It's just a conversation you're having. You're getting to know people when you talk to them. So that's kind of what I would say. Unfortunately, I don't really have any books that help me on the lead generation besides give me the motivation and the burn to try to want something.
No, Jared, thank you. I think that's very powerful. I can sum it up by saying, if you have a big enough why, it's going to motivate you to do anything that's uncomfortable, right? And you reference scripts. So a great resource for scripts is if you go to kwconnect.com and in the search bar, just type in the word scripts. The first thing that's going to pop up is the 3 lead generation manuals that KWRI puts out, which is for buyers, sellers, and lead generation. And it's like 200 something pages in each of them, and it's scripts for everything. So if anyone's looking for some scripts and you aren't in Bold, that is a great place for you to check out. So thank you, Jared, for sharing. So let's go to Carrie next. So Carrie, what are the resources, tools? What do you use to overcome your fears?
Let's see here. I've not delved into a bunch of books yet. I've listened to a little bit of Pivot, and actually most of Pivot, Shift or whatever. And then I have read a little bit of the MREA. But for me, it's accountability with others that helps me. My Ignite group, we still have a little bit of a call like twice a week just to check in and see how we're doing. And then I have another agent who's much more experienced in the office that we would check in for the first 3 months or so. I mean, literally, we were on the phone every day, checking in. What are you working on? What's going on? What questions do you have? And I agree with Jared. When you have a why, it motivates you. And so I like to just come from contribution, caring about people. Before I was in real estate, very involved. And so just following up with people and coming from, like you really care. You're not just trying to make money, but trying to help solve their life circumstances with a move and that kind of thing has been helpful for me. Actually, I am looking for more books to read. So I am open for, any suggestions, but being new, that's not something I've done yet. I haven't had time. Too busy learning Command and just trying to get to know what in the heck I'm doing to be able to sit down and have a bunch of time to read has been really a challenge. So, yeah.
Perfect. Well, awesome. Well, I have one that's one of my favorite books, and I don't know if Crispin's read this one. He probably has, but The Energy Bus is a very short, quick read that is really good. In sort of helping you overcome some of your fears. Yep. And it's just like a fun sort of read, but yeah, The Energy Bus would be one that I would recommend.
Yep. We did that when I taught preschool for 2 years. Yes, I've done weird things. They made us read The Energy Bus. So, and it was good. Yeah. And you just got to remember your why and keep positive and keep moving in the right direction is the goal of that book. And that's why I like talking with other people is because you can get good energy from them if you're talking to positive people and help keep you motivated.
Yep. The Energy Bus by John Gordon, 10 Rules to Fuel Your Life, Work, and Team with Positive Energy. So there's one that you can reiterate. And we'll wrap up with Crispin. So Crispin, what is a book or a tool or a resource that has helped you overcome your fears? And can you share that with everybody?
Yeah. probably the most around lead gen, fears, scripts, the most influential book. And I read a lot. I do Audible if you don't have that. I learned from Ben Kinney to put it on 1.5 speed, and I do about 2 books a week. Right now I'm reading books about spiritual awakening, and I think it's all interconnected. So that's part of my real estate business. And yet the most influential book that I believe you could read is called Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott. I've read this book over 20 times, and I read it every year, several times. This book, in what I understand, I had taken Bold many times before I started reading it. And Bold is, a big program with our company with MAPS, and MAPS has been instrumental. And a lot of our company current culture around productivity and scripts and questions comes from this book. So when you read it, you'll learn all kinds of things. What you'll find is when we're breaking down, because I'm a student of scripts and lead generation, there are many areas of my business that need to grow and improve. And yet one of them that I'm really proud of is like our mindset and understanding around how to lead gen. What you'll learn when you start diving into lead gen and scripts is it is a conversation, just like the other panelists said. And what you have to understand is when it comes to fear around lead generating, it's not the fear. It's not that you're afraid to make a phone call. Like you make phone calls all the time, you text all the time, you email all the time. That's not the fear. The fear is the lack of understanding. You don't know what to say, you don't know who you're saying it to, and you don't know what value that you have to offer. So what happens is the world teaches us to be salesmen. We have to prove all the time. We're arguing and debating and proving our position and our worth. And if you do that in a phone call with a stranger, it just doesn't go well. So you have to learn a new way to speak. And what I teach, which is what I learned from MAPS and this book, Fierce Conversations, is to speak in questions. And when you speak in questions, then you win. So I have this thing I teach that I love because we want to have robust referral businesses, because when you have that, you can quantify your new leads all day long. The referral business is the challenge. And so I teach this model that if you ask great questions, then you're in a great conversation. If you're in a great conversation, and the only way to quantify that is if you get permission to follow up. Calling people isn't about setting appointments. It's about converting a human and creating a new relationship. So great questions create a great conversation. With great conversations, you should have great follow-up. With great follow-up, then you're going to get in great relationship and you're going to have a great referral business. But it starts with great questions. So you have to master. And I would put scripts aside. You can get a 200-page, let's say you start today and I give you a script and it's the most amazing script that somebody made $7 million with. The script in and of itself isn't going to cause you to overcome your fears, to make phone calls, to make $7 million. It's not about the language or the words or the script. It's about your understanding of the script. And so I teach one script. I have one script I teach everybody. I don't have hundreds of scripts. I have one script. It's a discovery script. It starts with, hi, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Crispin Reyna, Carolyn's Realty. Listen, the reason for my call is, and we get into the reason. We share the reason. We use these tools that we learn, and then we close. That's it. That's the whole script. And you can use that for an expired or for so by owner, for anyone. I learned these questions out of this book called Fierce Conversations, and I highly recommend that you consider reading it and being a student of it. One of the things I've learned with this company is it's not enough to read a book. If it's really a worthy book that's going to impact your business or your life, you actually have to become a student of it. And there's only a handful of them. I study the MREA, I study Fierce Conversations, I study my Bold material, and then I'm constantly working on finding ways to implement it. And then like Jared, quantifying the results and the proof, because if you're going to take an action, you have to hold it accountable to produce. Otherwise, you shouldn't do that action anymore. So there's my book that I recommend. It's been wildly effective for me.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Crispin. So hasn't our panel been pretty awesome today? Yeah. So does anybody have any questions for any of our panelists? You can either type it in and I'll read it out, or you can unmute and let's have a little bit of a discussion on our last 10 minutes.
I have a question for Crispin. I know that you talked a lot about a Facebook ad scenario that had led you to getting a listing from Perry Homes, right, as it was going on to the market from them into an agent's hands. You captured that. Was that through a Facebook ad that you ran for Perry Homes listing, or?
Thank you for asking. That was actually, I converted a seller with a resale home.
Okay,
The seller was already under contract to purchase a Perry home.
okay, that's where Perry.
Now
came-
there was a quirky thing that happened. The only reason I got on it, it was an inventory home and they were busting out of the deal.
Yeah,
So I came in and saved the day because they weren't going to be able to sell their house. And so that sales counselor put me on 2 weeks before it closed. That never happens. But the way I got it is I did an ad for a listing and this seller called me. And so I met the seller. I did a listing presentation. It took me several weeks to convert them. I lost it. They actually went with another company. And then the other company, they went and they busted out of the Perry Homes deal, went in a contract on another property. And then whenever they were going to bust out of it, the other broker said, well, we're not going to honor our agreement anymore because you got to buy from our preferred buyer. So they lost their earnest money. So I went and got their earnest money back and they were very grateful. And so they put me on the Perry Homes deal. That's how that happened.
okay,
And then I listed their home later. Well,
Of course.
not that much later.
of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Any other questions? So awesome. I thank you. I want to end with a quote from the Energy Bus on page 73 that says, no one creates success in a vacuum, and the people we surround ourselves with have a big influence on the life and success we create. And so I want to say a big thank you to our three panelists, Crispin, Jared, and Carrie, for sharing the value to all of the other agents who are on this call currently and the ones who are going to watch it in the future. We had three different perspectives with three different business owners on the call today. And I believe if everyone else can shake their heads or give them a thumbs up if this provided you value. Thank you guys so much. And if no one else has any questions, we will end on the call. We've got several people saying thank you, very good information and greatly appreciated. So again, the resource tools that everyone talked about, Carrie talked about, where is it on there? Brian added it, keepingcurrentmatters.com. The book is Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott. And if no one else has anything else, you guys have a great rest of your day.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you all very much.